Cut.
I was really ready for you to do a talking heads bit.
You may
You said-
ask yourself, how did I get in this rainforest cafe?
I was ready to let the days go by, Kyle.
Well, I'm going to talk about eco-terrorism.
Got too excited about jorts.
I am leaving now with my Roomba or your blood on my hands.
I'm back on my bullshit.
What is meme if not air horn persevering?
No, this is not a family show.
And I quote, many American titties.
Why'd you have to bring Dane Cook to this, Andrew? No one wanted that.
Oh, you guys are not ready for what I've got today.
And I've apparently hit the very end of my attention span.
Give me like 30 seconds. I'm looking for rhymes.
Hello and welcome to Debate This, the show where no one is right, but someone is definitely wrong. In this show, we take time out of our busy adult lives to talk about comic books, video games, and how the Super Mario movie trailer certainly looks like a movie.
It sure does, Kyle. It sure does look like a movie.
If we're gonna do a good thing bad thing sandwich, I think that movie looks really pretty.
It's gorgeous.
Right?
And
like it's colorful. It captures the style of a Mario game.
Yep. And then the meat of the sandwich is Chris Pratt's Mario.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
And then
It's
my
surprisingly similar to Emmett from the Lego movie.
Mhm. And then my top bread of my sandwich is Jack Black as Bowser. Nailed it. In my opinion.
Yeah, super fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's Illumination. Do I
Yeah.
trust Illumination to do a good animated kids movie? Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that the movie will be a movie of quality. But like, God, Chris Pratt's Mario, man, it's just so. Everybody was like, "Oh, it's not even as bad as everybody's making it out to be," and I'm like, "That's what you don't. That's the problem, right? Is it that if it was bad, it would
Yeah.
at least have character?"
Yeah.
I don't know what I expected. Like, I don't know if I would have been happier with a voice. I certainly would have had something more to laugh at.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if Charlie Day went to college in New York City and came home for the holidays in his sophomore year. Like, that's how it sounds.
Charlie Day is in it. He's Luigi.
I know. And it like Chris Pratt's Mario sounds like Charlie Day doing a bad Brooklyn impression.
I can't wait to hear Charlie Day doing a bad Brooklyn impression.
It'll be something.
It will be.
All right. So, by now, if you are a longtime listener of Debate This, you know we take commissions for episode topics from our subscribers of the Master Debater tier over at patreon.com/debatethis. Check it out. What you may not know is that sometimes, if our poor patron is overwhelmed by choice, we have a reserve of topics that we are prepared to do a deep dive into at a moment's notice. Today we bring you one such episode. When mgrum57 had trouble picking from all the games in his nostalgia vault, I offered up some ideas of topics that I wanted to take a deeper look into, and he immediately took to one. Right in the crosspoint of 90s nostalgia, worldwide fads, and popular video games lies my favorite series, Pokemon.
Oh, it's a Pokemon episode.
It's a Pokemon episode! Blah, 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 blah. However, a flavor text on Pokemon seems pretty unnecessary at this point. It is the world's most popular media franchise. If you don't know anything about it by now, you're actively not trying to. No, today's episode is not about Pokemon as a whole, but the chokehold that it had on culture in the late 90s. If you weren't alive during this period, it is hard to fully grasp how sudden and massive Pokemon came onto the scene. And if you are already of driving age when this happened, you might not understand why it took over like it did. So my goal today is to explain the phenomenon known as Pokemania and help everyone understand just how much of a cultural wave it was. You may ask yourself, what does this episode have to do with the Spooktacular Express? Well, there are ghost Pokemon, so deal with it.
There aren't not.
There aren't
I'm
not.
just saying.
There are probably Pokemon in the Rainforest Cafe.
There are probably
mean,
Pokemon in the Haunted Rainforest Cafe, yes.
Ash has died like a couple times.
More than once.
That's true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If you are unfamiliar with our annual Halloween event, the Spooktacular Express is our opportunity to fill the Debate This main feed with spooky content. It is also the best time of year to join our Patreon, because
Really good read.
returning for the second year is our spooktacular bonus. If you join our Patreon between now and the end of October, we'll send you a sick Halloween Debate This tchotchke. We are also running what we call the Spooktacular Review-a-thon. Write a review of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or your podcast app of choice, and tag us in a screenshot on your favorite social media at DebateThisCast. We'll read the best reviews in a dumb, spooky voice during the October ad breaks, and if we get 20 new reviews by the end of the month, we'll do a stream of Todd playing Doki Doki Literature Club at a to-be-determined date.
You guys have to do this, please. Like, we don't ask for a lot on the show. Well, we do. We do ask for a lot, actually.
Well,
But,
we really just ask for the same, like, 2 or 3 things every week, but...
we ask the same thing. This is like a new thing. Please do this, because we've been trying to convince Todd to play Doki Doki Literature Club for years.
For years now.
And I just really want it to happen. I just really want it.
The first spooky ad read was in last week's episode. If you're listening to this and didn't hear it, and you're like, will I get my time's worth, the 60 seconds it will take me to write a review of this podcast? Go back and listen to last week's episode, and then, I don't know, you tell me. Maybe in a review of the podcast. That would be a great place to tell us about it.
And we'll probably do them after October, since like we record these before they come out. So, just do it. Just throw up a review and just let us know, because like it's going to happen.
Like prolific American actor Shia LaBeouf once said in front of a green screen, just do
it. All right. So, I can't do this dive into Pokemania alone.
That was such a good segue.
Thanks. So I am joined by Andrew, knows all the lyrics to the Pokerap Henderson, and Matt had his holographic Charizard stolen at recess Cole to help me through this celebration of nostalgia. Gentlemen.
Nobody ever stole my holographic Charizard card.
My Charizard never got stolen, but my Blastoise did.
I tried to trick a younger child, into trading me his Charizard, and then his dad took it back.
Ooh, you were the bad kid on recess. Gentlemen, welcome.
I was the older kid.
Thank you. What are your experiences of the late 90s explosion of collectible monsters?
Yeah, I mean, like, my answer from before when you sent us the poker app, and they're like, make sure to watch this. I don't need to make sure I've watched the poker app. I grew up in the 90s. I was born in 1988. Yeah, I mean, this was my jam, man. Like, I got Pokemon Red for my 11th birthday or my 10th birthday. I was the same age as the Pokemon trainer, but when I got Pokemon Red, this was my life for years. Not just obviously the games, but like, I had like got all my parents and my grandparents to take me to every hobby store in the like Tri-County, Western Pennsylvania area to find Japanese prints of Pokemon cards. Just trying to get that misprint oddish.
There's a 100% Andrew that you and I were in the same New Dimensions comics at one point in our childhood lives.
Absolutely, 100% chance.
Yeah, I mean, similar. I'm the young guy. I was born in 93, so I was a hair young for like the original release of Pokemon, but like I had a Game Boy Color. I got Pokemon Blue very early, and I had the guidebooks. I got Nintendo Power. I ordered the guidebooks. I used to have, like I would sit on the couch and my mom would read me the guides to get through the ice levels and shit like that. Like, I loved the movies. I loved the show. Oh, baby, I loved the show. And I was really into the trading cards. Like, I had a ton of them.
Did you play the game when you were...
I did,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, we never played it. We only collected the cards.
I played the game with some neighbors, and then like we ended up getting more into Yu-Gi-Oh, but I definitely did play the Pokemon trading card game. And I have a very specific childhood memory of calling my dad at work. Like, I don't know if I was off school. It might have been over the summer or something. And my mom and I were at the mall, and I went to the previously mentioned New Dimension Comics. Actually, I probably went to EB Games because I think I bought most of my Pokemon cards from EB Games. And I bought a booster pack, and I don't remember what was in it, but there was something in it that I remember needing to like call my dad at work about on the way home. Like, Dad, I got this card. I'm sure you don't give a shit, but you know, it happened.
Yeah, I mean, same. I had an original like giant brick Game Boy. We got a copy of Pokemon Red that we tried to share at first, my brother and I. And then after he erased my original file, we got a second copy of Blue and 2 Game Boy Colors so we could each play. So that was fine. I didn't make it far. I think I made it to Brock and then like had to restart. So like 9-year-old, 10-year-old me was real sad, but like in retrospect, I got over it. There was a kiosk at Kenwood Mall in Cincinnati that we would always make our mom go to and buy us at least one booster pack of cards when we had to go shopping with her. We watched the anime every morning before school, even when it looped, like got through the original like 60 episodes that aired and looped back around. We were like, great, let's start it over.
Here we go again.
Yeah. I have a very specific memory of being on vacation out here in Colorado, actually, and like having the realization like, oh, the time difference means my jet lag is going to let me wake up early enough to watch new episodes of Pokemon.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So Pokemon is very influential on my life. It is still my favorite game series, even though the more recent games have been less enchanting than the originals. And I'm very, very excited to do this. And I actually learned a good amount going through this that I didn't know. So
that's sweet.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We're the way this is going to go is I'm going to kind of go through the games from development to the release of Red and Blue in the United States. We'll take a break and then we'll talk about all the other things that spun out of the games after the break, because that is also a thing. So here we go. Pokemon was created in Japan by game developer Satoshi Tajiri. And if I'm saying that wrong, Andrew, please correct me.
I think you're good.
Okay. Satoshi Tajiri grew up fascinated with 2 things: insects and video games. He was a very like avid bug collector. He like loved just going out in his backyard and like seeing what bugs were there, and like he had his like pinned collection of bugs that he.
It's very similar lore to the Miyamoto's like origin of Zelda.
Oh yeah. Very cool. And his interest in video games was so high that he would frequently skip class and responsibility to go to the arcade to play. So much so that his parents often called him a delinquent, and like he dropped out of he did not graduate from high school on time. He dropped out of high school, but did go back and get the like Japanese equivalent of the GED. After getting that certificate, he went to the Tokyo National College of Technology, where he got a 2-year technical degree in electronics and computer science. From there, he started a small video game zine called Game Freak in 1981.
Oh,
Whoa, really?
that's
Yeah.
so cool. It started as a zine.
Yep.
How
Damn,
rad.
that's awesome.
He self-printed, self-published all of it. Let me see here. He published himself until 1986. Game Freak published mostly video game guides and Easter eggs for like arcade games, with the highest selling issue hitting about 10,000 copies sold. And it was a guide to getting the high score on an arcade game called Xevious. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's like devious with an X instead. It is during this time printing the Game Freak zine that Tajiri met and hired illustrator Ken Sugimori, who later created the popular illustrations of the first 150 Pokemon. Frustrated that so many of the games he was covering in Game Freak were bad, Tajiri figured the only way to get the types of games that he wanted to play was to make them himself. So,
Man, That rules.
Incredible.
He was like, I need better content for my zine, so I'm gonna make my own game.
Yeah.
I love it.
So he taught himself Family Basic, which is the operating system that Famicom ran on, so that he could make his game for the Famicom. And in 1989, Game Freak converted into a video game development company, and Tajiri made his first game, Quinty, later released as Mendel Palace, which was published by Namco and Hudson Soft.
That is so rad.
Yeah,
That's so
it's
rad.
so
and weird.
cool.
And like, man, what a lot of work to make content for your zine, to like create a company. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like it's got big like I'll do it myself with blackjack and
Yep.
hookers vibe.
Right.
It's crazy, man.
It's so
That's
cool. I should also note that Tajiri would occasionally write articles for other publications as well under the name Game Freak. So Game Freak was like his zine and then like his pen name moniker as well.
Sure.
So Tajiri first got the idea for Pokemon in 1990 after seeing the early capabilities of the Game Boy Link cable. It was actually his original inspiration. Being an avid insect collector, his coworkers at the time called him Dr. Bug because he was still so into collecting insects. He imagined bugs crawling across the link cable to play games with friends.
Oh, so he's a weirdo too.
He's a little bit of a weirdo. I mean, you gotta be to like be like, I'm gonna make my own.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. The anecdote that I saw was like in 1990, most of what the link cable was used for was like playing Battle Tetris. And he was like, I don't want that. I want to trade collectibles with my friends. So thus, Tajiri pitched Pokemon to Nintendo. They did not fully understand what he was like trying to sell. They didn't get the full concept, but he had developed enough games at this point that they were like, we think you've got it. We're going to give you a development deal. Go make Pokemon. And they were,
God, we got the bug guy again.
We got the bug guy again.
back.
They were all, I should note, they were also interested in pushing forward the link cable technology. Like this is the beginning of multiplayer gaming. Or like home multiplayer gaming. So they gave him the green light, mostly on, again, his resume, and they wanted the link cable to be something bigger. Tajiri and Game Freak worked for 6 years on Pokemon and almost bankrupted the company in the process. There's some stories of like employees had to quit. Tajiri had to like move back in with his dad and like not take a salary. They were saved by an angel investor kind of in the 11th hour. But in February 1996, Pokemon Red version and Pokemon Green version were released in Japan, and the rest, as they say, was history. Except it almost wasn't. Wanting to take advantage of the link cable, Pokemon was developed for the Game Boy, a system nearing the end of its life cycle. At this point in 1996, it was 7 years old. It was being technologically outpaced by competing systems like the Sega Game Gear and the Atari Lynx.
Notoriously successful console.
Very notoriously
Atari Lynx.
successful Lynx, yes. And early in Pokemon's life, media outlets, gaming outlets wouldn't really cover it. They were like, it's a Game Boy game, it's old technology, like what's the appeal here? But sales continued to climb, and the release of Pokemon Blue version and the launch of the Pokemon trading card game gave Pokemon the shot in the arm it needed to begin its ascension to the worldwide phenomenon it became. Pokemon Red and Green combined sold 1.04 million copies in 1996 in its first year, and then 3.65 million in 1997, making it the highest selling game in Japan for 1997 over Final Fantasy VII. Excuse me.
I mean, an RPG that series is never going to be a bestseller.
Well, I mean, Pokemon is also an RPG.
That's true. That is true.
By
It's got more mass appeal.
By 1998, Pokemon had sold 10 million copies just in Japan, and we haven't even crossed the Pacific Ocean yet. By 2000, following the release of Gold and Silver versions, the franchise will have generated over $4 billion in sales in Japan alone.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's wild. I mean, like, just for context, I think like when we talked about Fire Emblem, we were talking about like the franchise being saved by making 1 million copies nationwide,
Yeah.
or like worldwide. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
like the context of numbers, as it sounds, because it's monopoly money after a while.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is all just like on that one island.
Right.
So in October 1998, Pokemon Red and Blue were released in North America. They sold 200,000 copies in the first 2 weeks, making it the fastest selling Game Boy game ever. And then 4 million copies by the end of 1998. So it sold 4 million copies in the 3 months that it was released in the US. It went on to be the best-selling game of 1999, selling 6.1 million copies in the United States. In 2009, IGN declared Pokemon Red and Blue the best-selling RPG of all time. And in 2007, it made the Guinness Book of World Records for the best-selling video game that was not part of a bundle.
Wow.
Question to you, Kyle. I don't know if you saw this.
Mm-hmm.
Where does Tetris lie? Because I always thought Tetris was the highest selling Game Boy game.
I did not see Tetris, but
I know it's, but like to
This-
your point,
this
it
w-
gets, the numbers are weird because I know it gets bundled. It got bundled a lot. So
Yeah.
Tetris has this. Yeah, Tetris gets weird because also the rights of Tetris
yeah,
belong to the Soviet Union, technically.
yeah, that's
Right. Correct.
Because
And there isn't just like one version of Tetris.
and there isn't just one version of
Yeah.
Tetris, et cetera, et cetera. So Tetris gets a little wonky with numbers. This quick Google search puts Tetris at number 3 on best-selling video games under Minecraft and Grand Theft Auto 5, but I don't know what version of Tetris that is.
Yeah, that's fair.
Um,
I'd like to see an N on that.
and like
Okay,
and like
yeah.
Wii
Yeah.
Sports is after Tetris, which was included in a bundle.
pack.
So yeah, I blew through the background of the games quicker than I thought, but we are going to take a quick break. With that, we're going to take a quick break when we'll come back and talk about the Pokemon trading card game and the anime.
And now, a Spooktacular Express spooky review read. This review titled,
The real winner is the goose we made along the way. Guy Fieri, Rami Malek, and David Schwimmer walk into KK Slider's Dive Jazz Bar. What's the punchline? I don't know. They don't know. But Andrew probably wrote a script for the 2-hour conversation they share about how they got roped into the Debate This Studio cinematic universe. I present you Debate This.
this review titled, Untitled.
One of the most fun zombie fighting in a mall episodes I've ever listened to. The Spooktacular Express is off to a great start. Loved MC DJ MC as the host.
This has been a Spooktacular Express spooky review read.
Okay, we're back. We just did a quick run through of the history of the development and kind of success of the first Pokemon games. However, 2 successful Pokemon games does not a mania make. So contributing to the initial success, and again, global spread of Pokemon, were a couple other things, one of which is pretty adjacent to child gambling, and then a very fun cartoon. So let's get into my first loot box, the Pokemon trading card game.
Yeah.
Boy, that's real.
The first edition of the Pokemon trading card game was released in October 1996 by Japanese publishing company Media Factory. Following the growing success of Red and Green, and to serve as additional promotion for the release of the blue version.
I do have a question. I'm so sorry, Kyle.
Yeah,
I thought I knew this, but maybe I don't. Does blue not exist in Japan?
it does.
Is blue US only? Okay, so
Blue-
blue was a third.
It was like a
version?
yellow in
Like
Japan.
a yellow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
hmm
Okay.
Yeah. That was also something I learned new, because I was under the assumption it was red and green and then red and blue in the US, but blue came out. They tweaked a handful of bugs from the initial red and green, and then blue was what was ported into red and blue in the US.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yep.
So it's kind of like a version 1.1.1.
Yep.
Okay.
102 original cards were included in the base set of the Pokemon trading card game, and included Pokemon from the original roster of 150, as well as trainer cards that represented items, locations, and events from the game, as well as 7 energy cards that served as the game's main resource. The game is largely modeled after Wizards of the Coast's Magic the Gathering. The game involves placing and battling Pokemon, attaching energy cards to those Pokemon to enable attacks, and evolution cards that represent the evolution mechanic from the Pokemon game and increase the power of your Pokemon. As Pokemon are knocked out, players choose one of their prize cards to add to their hand. A winner is declared when a player either has no Pokemon in their bench or on the field, or when all of a player's prizes are drawn. Just a quick how it's played.
You explained that like it was so easy and not complicated. I
It
know
is
there
so
was
complicated.
There was no good resource to learn the game as a child until the Game Boy Pokemon trading card game came out, and finally, that's how I knew how to play it.
Same.
Yep.
Yes.
I got a VHS tape. I have no idea from where, but it was from the official Pokemon trading card league.
Yeah.
Because, Andrew, I don't know if you remember this, but there was an official Pokemon gym, hard quotes on gym, in the Pittsburgh airport, in one of the terminals of Pittsburgh
didn't know.
airport.
Oh.
Yeah. And I never played Pokemon. I was like 7, but
Yeah.
I had a VHS that taught me how to play the trading card game.
I had
So funny.
I had one for Magic the Gathering that came in like a starter deck of Magic that like walked you through how to play the first 5 turns of Magic. VHS bundles of like instructional VHS bundles is a very late 90s thing. That is
See also those promo videos that you'd get with Nintendo Power.
Yes.
There's gotta be like a black market for those free promo VHSs.
Similar but a little unrelated. Did either of you get the like promo VHS with like the Sunday paper of Yu-Gi-Oh that had like the first 7 minutes of Yu-Gi-Oh?
I don't think so.
We sure did.
Did you watch the hell out of
We
it?
watched. I might have be imagining we watched it more than we did, but I feel like we watched the hell out of it. It was like what, you know, it was like 7 minutes of lore for Yu-Gi-Oh with like the Millennium Puzzle and like Exodia.
Right.
And then like
if you remember it, that means you probably watched it more than you think you did.
Probably.
Right. It's like how I remember every word of the Star Fox 64 promotional video.
But we digress. So in 1999, Wizards of the Coast published the first U.S. run of the Pokemon trading card game base set, exposing millions of American children to their first loot box system. Wizards of the Coast reports that they sold over 400,000 packs of Pokemon cards in the first 6 weeks of U.S.
My
release.
God.
I could not find any other sales data for 1999 or 2000 to track like how it exploded. But man, if you were alive in those years, you have a Pokemon card, whether you wanted it or not. Like, they were everywhere.
This, like, as I recall, this dethroned Beanie Babies.
Dethroned Beanie Babies entirely. Yes. It was the other big 90s collectible that I bought way too many of.
Yup.
Mm-hmm.
In 2003, the Pokemon Company bought back the publishing rights from Media Factory and Wizards of the Coast and began printing the cards themselves. The Pokemon trading card game still releases new sets quarterly, probably more than quarterly at this point. With its most recent set, Sword and Shield Champion's Path, having come out just a few weeks ago at the end of September. September 25th, 2022 was the most recent Pokemon release.
I have a question for you, Kyle.
Yes.
I seem to have a memory of Pokemon cards just kind of totally going away. Was there ever a period that the trading card game just kind of like ceased to exist, or did it just fall out of the cultural zeitgeist that I existed in?
I talk a little bit about that at the end. It never fully went away. You are probably remembering the like transition period where like Wizards of the Coast was no longer publishing it and the Pokemon Company hadn't had a release yet. So there probably was a gap at that time. I didn't see anything about it during my research. I didn't look too hard at the release dates during that time because I have a job. But but probably. And then I'll talk about the like seeming decline of Pokemania at the end here. Again, couldn't find a ton on like what caused it or what happened, but I have some ideas. I have thoughts.
Cool.
So yeah, that's the Pokemon trading card game. I want to do one of my favorite things to do in flavor texts, which is controversy.
Ooh.
Because it was such a huge, like, everyone and their grandma knew Pokemon cards were a thing. It sparked controversy at the time. So while like gachapon type games have a history in Japan and trading cards have a long history in the US with like sports cards and stuff, the explosion of Pokemon cards in the United States whipped up a bunch of panic for the parents of kids who were asked to spend $4 to $5 a pop for 11 pieces of cardboard, whose collector's status made individual cards vary in value on the secondary market, which meant kids were heading, like 9-10-year-old kids were heading off to school with pieces of paper that could potentially be worth triple digits. There were tons of reports of theft, exploitation, shady deals, destruction of property, etc., that resulted in many schools and institutions at the time just to outright ban the cards from their premises. I think there was about a 6-month window where I was allowed to bring my Pokemon cards to school.
Yeah.
And I had to sneak them to play like at the bus stop after that. And then the next year, they didn't care nearly as much. But
there's something else to get concerned about.
Yeah.
I think that was what prompted me and my friends to switch to Yu-Gi-Oh! Was like they banned Pokemon cards somewhere around 2nd or 3rd grade, and they never banned Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, so we just started playing Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yep. That's how I got into Magic, was Magic cards were not banned, and the teachers didn't care enough to like be like, yeah, don't bring those either. Like, it was just...
Right.
They did like, you solved my puzzle, I guess you can play Magic. Like,
you solved my Millennium puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this really was like a gateway drug to TCGs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you said, Pokemon is really just like a whitewashed version of Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
really was.
So is Yu-Gi-Oh! For that matter.
So is Yu-Gi-Oh!
Right.
For that matter. There was also a wave of satanic panic surrounding the games and cards, again, sparked by the sudden popularity of this loot box system with kids. In addition to fears that their kids were being exposed to gambling, as Pokemon gained more and more awareness, more evangelical Christian groups opposed their kids being exposed to these demonic foreign monsters with elemental and supernatural powers that evolve as a main mechanic. It was just like a checklist of things to scare evangelical Christian parents at the time. And Christian groups all over the US called for a ban on the cards and games in the wake of their popularity, and just had a general outrage at Pokemon.
I think you said the Pee Wee Herman's phrase of the week there. When you said foreign.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the real, like, not only was this foreign, this was from a country that America at one time was at war with, despite the fact that it had been 50 years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad.
It's kind of weird, too, because we've talked about on the podcast how much Pokemon is just literal dogfighting. And how there are certainly some very strange moral questions that Pokemon can lead one to. And that was never part of the panic.
No, and like PETA has tried to whip up that panic in years since, but no one ever bites that bait that they dangle out whenever a new Pokemon game hits, so it never became a panic. PETA did actually at one point release like a Flash version parody of Pokemon that like has the battles being very bloody and gruesome as an attempt to like be like, see, it's dogfighting, this is bad, and like it's PETA, so they just got laughed at.
They're not wrong.
They're not wrong.
Like,
and I'm all for animal rights, but PETA is a silly organization.
Sure.
Yeah. The other controversy I wanted to talk about surrounding the Pokemon trading card game is one of my favorite weird bits of Pokemon controversy. So in November of 2000, the Israeli-British illusionist Uri Geller filed a lawsuit against Nintendo, claiming that the Pokemon Kadabra was an unauthorized parody of his public image. Geller's brand at the time involved bending spoons and doing like telepathic cold reading tricks. And it did not help matters that the Japanese name for Kadabra is Yungur, which sounds a lot like Uri Geller, especially with a thick Israeli accent.
Yeah.
Geller also claimed that the original design for Kadabra is anti-Semitic, in addition to stealing his brand, with a star on its forehead being reminiscent of Jewish victims of the Holocaust being forced to wear the Star of David, and the zigzag patterns on its stomach resembling the symbol of the SS, the Nazi police force tasked with carrying out the genocide in Nazi Germany. Both of those symbols are actually taken off of a like popular type of like the cards used to like test psychic powers during the 60s. There were like these very specific images on those cards. Those icons were taken off of that, actually. However, it
makes sense. I would also argue they also appear on Sneetches, so
yeah, man. Like it's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I see what you're doing here, but
it's a bit of a stretch. There is and we will get into this more with the anime. There is a history of, Japan taking iconography from cultures it doesn't fully understand and then being like, oh, that's actually racist. But I'm willing to throw down that it was not the case here, and Uri Geller saw an opportunity to get his name in the newspapers.
I just dropped a picture of him in the notes.
Yeah. As a result of this lawsuit, Kadabra did not appear in the trading card game or anime after 2003 and had its appearance altered in all future games going forward, removing the star and the zigzags or altering them enough that it steered clear of this. It made it really weird in the trading card game because they kept printing new versions of Abra and Alakazam, the like bookended evolutions of Kadabra, the Pokemon, and had to work in ways that you could still play like Alakazam without evolving it from a Kadabra card that no one had anymore.
Wow.
It was,
Huh.
yeah. So, like, from 2003 on, any Alakazam card was just played like a normal basic Pokemon card, not needing to evolve from anything.
Wild.
Yeah. However, in November of 2020, Uri Geller dropped his ban on Kadabra, apologizing to fans of the Pokemon franchise, and released a video he filmed himself on his Twitter feed of him opening a bunch of like Kadabra merch that he supposedly like locked in the Indiana Jones vault, like.
Oh my god.
So he saw his star fading once again and is like, wait a minute, I can do this again, but in reverse. So the trading card game and anime have since both included Kadabra now that he has like lifted his ban on Kadabra,
Wow.
the Pokemon.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
I remember reading about this for an episode that we did, and I don't remember which one it was, but I remember watching that video, and it is very strange.
It's very
got
strange.
Some real, I've slipped out of relevance and need to claw my way back in energy.
Yeah. And it doesn't help that magicians are among like the weirdest group of entertainers as well. So it's just the vibes are all off in that video. It's weird. Let's talk about the anime. Pokemon.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
here
in.
we go. So, on April 1st, 1997, Pokemon, an anime based loosely on the games, aired its first episode in Japan titled Pokemon I Choose You. The episode introduces us to Ash, Satoshi in Japan, named after the creator of Game Freak and Pokemon, a 10-year-old aspiring Pokemon trainer on the day that he gets his first Pokemon. His first Pokemon is the rebellious electric mouse Pokemon Pikachu. Ash and Pikachu butt heads, with Ash often being the victim of Pikachu's electric shocks. Undeterred, Ash sets out on his Pokemon journey when he meets the not yet revealed gym leader Misty, whose bike he steals and later destroys through Pikachu doing a powerful electric attack meant to save the pair from a flock of angry Spearow. We are also introduced to Jessie, James, and their talking Meowth, a cat Pokemon, who make up the villainous Team Rocket, who want to steal Pikachu to win favor with their boss after seeing its powerful attacks.
The greatest cartoon villains ever
The
created.
greatest
Truly.
cartoon villain of all time. This is where
our bisexual gods, Jesse and James.
our bisexual icons, Jesse and James. This is where Pokemania really kicks into high gear, guys. This is what takes Pokemania through the stratosphere, beyond just being a game for children and also being a television franchise for children. The show is widely popular. After the first season airs in Japan, it is sold into syndication in the US in September of 1998 and blows up, spawning merch and all kinds of new Pokemon fans after this. It came out a month ahead of the release of Red and Blue in the US as promotion for the games as well. And the anime solidified Pikachu as the mascot of the series and turning this demonic gambling game for children into the worldwide phenomenon it has become since. It's really funny to see merch from before the anime came out because they didn't have a mascot picked. So you'd see Pokemon that like no one thinks about anymore front and center. My favorite example is like Poliwhirl.
Yes, I have a lot of Poliwhirl toys.
Yeah, Poliwhirl is like included in a lot of merch.
There's a lot of weird trivia. I think wasn't Poliwhirl like one of the first ones that Ken Sugimori created?
It was an early one because it's based on frogs and his first concept was bugs, so like that spun out of that. Another fun bit of trivia is that for a while concepting the anime, they were kicking around the idea of Clefairy being the mascot Pokemon and having everything be pink. And because at the time, the most successful anime property was Hello Kitty. Hello Kitty is still a wildly popular anime property, but they were leaning into that, like, oh, this anime for girls is widely popular. Let's chase the female demographic here with Clefairy. Nandrew put a chunky Pikachu.
I put in Fat Pikachu. Original Ken Sugimori Pikachu. It's Fat Pikachu, and I love him.
Yes.
He looks like shit. So different.
This is one of my favorite cards. So I have not gotten back into the Pokemon card collecting. Thank God. My wallet can't handle that sort of thing. But I do still have my old cards, and I was very proud to have both the red-cheeked and the yellow-cheeked Pikachu.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. The success of the anime spawned its own game. Pokemon Yellow version was released in 1999 or 2000. I didn't include the date of Pokemon Yellow version's release, but it was a remake of the American Pokemon Red and Blue versions, with changes made to it to more closely resemble the anime. The player in Pokemon Yellow is no longer given a choice of their first Pokemon, but is given a Pikachu, complete with an early version of a happiness mechanic so that they can, like, win over this Pikachu's affection. Sprites were changed to more accurately reflect the anime designs, and the Team Rocket plot in the game is altered to include a pair of grunts that look like Jesse and James from the anime. It's very fun. If you're gonna play a, like, first gen Pokemon game, play Yellow. It's got a lot of the bugs worked out at this point, being the third version of the game.
Is there Missing No in Yellow, or did they patch?
They patched out Missing No. That is the one thing. The game is a massive hit in the US, leading to 3 more quote-unquote third versions included in future installments of the series with Crystal, Emerald, and Platinum. The show's popularity also led to the production of Pokemon the First Movie. And if I had to pinpoint a high water line for Pokemania, is probably the lead up to this movie or the lead up to Gold and Silver. Take your pick. It's around the same time. It's all the same wave, but one or the other.
Turn of the Millennium.
It is important to note, Pokemon the First Movie is not the title of the 75-minute like feature film. Pokemon the First Movie is the bundle of Mewtwo Strikes Back, the 75-minute feature film, and the short that played before it, Pikachu's Vacation. So if you see advertised Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back, that is the first like feature-length film, and then for the American release, they packaged it with that short to make Pokemon the First Movie.
That was the big reveal of Pika-Blue, aka Meryl.
Meryl. It included some Pokemon that had not been yet released in games, including Meryl and Donphan. Two Pokemon that we were very excited to see in the movie that ended up being kind of dog shit in the game.
Kind of a wet fart.
Did either of you, A, see this movie opening weekend, and B, get the promotional Dragonite card that came with a ticket purchase opening weekend? Because
Kyle.
I did both.
Yes. Yeah, I want to say yes, but I remember having the weird Burger King Mew card instead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I also have hella Burger King Mew cards, but this was my first movie in theaters.
Wow.
What?
Yeah. So technically, I believe that this is my if I remember my Matt Cole history well, which I don't. But if I remember correctly, this is my second movie in theaters. My first movie in theaters being a preschool field trip to watch E.T., which I will remind you did not come out in my lifetime.
Sure.
But then, yeah, my first like actual new movie in theaters, I'm pretty sure was Pokemon.
The first movie.
Yeah. And I love this movie to this day. Pikachu's Vacation is fine, but Mewtwo Strikes Back is like
It's good.
It's good.
It's a good animated movie.
Yeah.
It is a good animated movie, and I like my favorite inspirational quote in life is the Mewtwo quote from this movie. Like this movie means a lot to me, probably more than it should, but I really love this movie.
Yeah, it's a really good movie.
I don't know why, but we can cut this out. But I feel like I heard it was some other piece of media where like somebody quotes the Mewtwo line and is like, was that a famous like writer or
Yes.
something? Like, no, it's Mewtwo from Pokemon.
I remember that story. It was like it was I think a politician or an aspiring politician, and they were like, "What's a quote
right.
you live by?" And they did that quote, and they're like, "Oh, what? Who said that?" The Pokemon Mewtwo.
Fucking motherfucking Mewtwo.
So, released in July 1998 in Japan and November 1999 in the United States, the movie was a massive, massive success, with the U.S. release being Warner Brothers' biggest animated film opening weekend ever. It is the highest-selling animated film put out by Warner Brothers still.
Damn.
Opening weekend. Not highest selling, but opening weekend. It made $12.8 million in 12 days, even with an almost 60% drop-off in the second week. It was the only anime movie to have the #1 box office spot ever until 2021's Demon Hunter movie, also released in theaters.
Wow.
Huh.
Yeah.
Dang.
Other fun facts: the U.S. translation and localization. Demon Slayer. That's what I meant. Yes.
Whatever. Nerd.
Sorry. Well, we did that.
We did the episode on it. I know. The U.S. translation and localization is hilariously bad, with Pokemon being referred to by the wrong names, the rice balls passed off as jelly donuts, etc., etc. Yeah.
So good.
It was a rush job of a localization, and it shows. In 2019, a CGI version of the movie was released called Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution. It's an entirely 3D animated remake of the movie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is that not basically Detective Pikachu?
It is similar to Detective Pikachu, but it's different. Because it's not Detective Pikachu, it's Mewtwo Strikes Back.
It's a different movie.
Ryan Reynolds isn't there, so you know.
No Ryan Reynolds. I believe it's the whole like cast from the original or close to it. Yeah. In June 1999, a soundtrack based on the anime was released called To Be a Master. Numeral 2, letter B, A, Master. From
your friends at number 4 Word Kids Entertainment.
Yep. It featured songs from the anime as well as originals based on episodes of the series, including the full theme song and the full Pokemon rap that would play at the end of the US release on Kids WB. It sold over 3 million copies and hit #1 on the Billboard Kids charts.
Is there any bigger bummer phrase than the Billboard Kids charts?
Probably not, because I think the if you're aiming for kids, you want to be #1 on Radio Disney, I think is the play there.
Wow, I haven't thought about Radio Disney in a hot minute, Kyle. That just activated something deep within me that I didn't like.
I was thinking not even Radio Disney and like Baby Shark.
And with the anime brings a whole new controversy section. So the big controversy from the anime would have to be the episode with the Guinness Book of World Record for most photosensitive epileptic seizures caused by an episode of television.
This is my favorite one.
What an award.
What an award. Episode 38, only with the Japanese title Electric Warrior Pokemon, or Porygon, I'm sorry, never aired in the United States after causing over 700 Japanese viewers of varying ages to have light-induced epileptic seizures following a 4-second sequence of Pikachu shooting an electric blast at vaccine missiles.
Sorry, what?
Yeah.
What a sentence.
The plot involves them like going into a computer, I think, and like The computer thinks they're a virus, so it shoots antivirus missiles at them, and Pikachu electrocutes them. The screen flashes, and 700 Japanese people had seizures. The episode has never aired outside of Japan. It is rumored that 4Kids has a English dub of the episode. However, claims are dubious. It was briefly included when the series hit, like, I think Japanese Hulu. It was briefly like in the playlist, and then someone was like, "Oh, nope, can't do that," and then removed it from Hulu within the day. There is also an episode of the anime, I forgot to look this up, I don't know the title, that aired once in the United States and never again because a grown man points a real metal gun at Ash's forehead in the Safari Zone episode of the series. That's buck wild as well.
That's really funny.
That is really nuts.
The last controversy here is the design of the Pokemon Jinx had to be altered after color was added to the design for the anime. While the original design was based off imagery from minstrel shows and racist depiction of African-descended people based on the illustrations in the children's book The Story of Little Black Sambo, Jinx's skin tone was not changed until it appeared in the anime. It was changed from black to purple following the airing of the episode Holiday Hijinks. If you have seen the Pokemon Jinx or Dragon Ball Z, you know why. It's not great.
Yeah.
Not great. Mr. Popo's purple now too, right? What color
Or like
is Mr.
dark
Popo
green.
now?
I don't.
Something like that, yeah. I know
Same
they changed the
same
skin.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it. That is my recollection of Pokemania. There is, of course, way more to talk about that with Pokemania phenomenon, and we could be here all day if we went through the merch that came out around the same time. The plastic figurines, the Pokedexes, the Game Boy peripherals that all spawned out of this. However, this show has to end, and those are all like symptoms of Pokemania, where I believe we just covered the three things that built Pokemania. One thing I was surprised to find, and Matt, you brought this up earlier, was that there was not a real like cause of the decline of Pokemania. And it's possible that the fascination never ended. Pokemon is still the number one selling media franchise in the world. It is still wildly successful. The games are always among Nintendo's best sellers each release. All kinds of spin-off games. The anime is still going strong. The trading card game is still going strong. There's still a movie that comes out based from the anime like every other year. Those get theatrical releases from time to time. Pokemon is still huge. It is far from going away. If you show someone a picture of Pikachu, pick a random world citizen and show them Pikachu, odds are they'll know Pikachu or Pokemon. The best I can do here is guess at the decline. Based on my memory, the gold and silver versions came out, and there was just a long enough gap before Ruby and Sapphire that most of our age group just kind of aged out of like being obsessed with the franchise of cute and powerful monsters. However, I also suspect, based on timing, and this is not a joke, that 9/11 also like caused the decline of Pokemania. The culture just was shocked so hard by 9/11 that like it was hard for anyone older than an actual child to like be super into Pokemon, because like we were worried about other things after that. So
we've talked about it before in the show. There was a very definitive point in time. There, pretty much all life pre-Guitar Hero versus post-Guitar Hero.
yeah,
Like video gaming post-Guitar Hero was very like RPGs just weren't very popular. Like there was a long period there where no one was really interested in doing RPGs. No one was really interested in Nintendo
Yeah.
games.
Yeah.
Like 2008 to like 2014 was like very much the like everyone was just into like shooters and
Yep.
keeping it gritty and gray. Right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
Yeah.
and I do think that might, I mean, the culture of like 9/11 definitely played into that, and the culture, the like cynicism of the mid 2000s definitely played into that a lot. There's a lot there.
And the 90s definitely ended on September 11th, 2001. Like that was the beginning of the 2000s. So that
Much like the 2020s were started with a
with
pandemic.
another disaster. Yep. Sure were.
Can I venture some reasons I think that Pokemon died?
Sure, please. I was hoping to find a solid answer to this and did not. So this is going to be like added to my list of ongoing conspiracies to think about. So please.
Yeah. So I was really like intimately aware of Pokemon quote unquote dying off because I really did like the Pokemon trading card game, and all of my friends got really into Yu-Gi-Oh! And like Pokemon just wasn't really the thing to be into anymore. And I think there were a couple of things that put it down. The first of which I think was the Nintendo DS as a whole. Every single kid I knew had a Game Boy Advance, and basically everybody I knew my age had red, blue, or yellow, gold, silver, or crystal, and ruby or sapphire. I had no friends that bought diamond or pearl. And it was...
See, I experienced slightly different, because I definitely see the decline of Pokemania happening before Ruby and Pearl, or Ruby and Sapphire came out. Because my friend group, I couldn't find anyone except me, my brother, and like our neighbor friends who we convinced to buy it to play Ruby and Sapphire. But my whole senior class, I was a senior in high school when Diamond and Pearl came out, and like my whole friend group senior year got DSs just to play Diamond and Pearl. Now, part of that was we were 18 and had jobs and like disposable income, and we're like, yay, Pokemon is back. But like, I definitely saw the decline before Ruby and Sapphire.
And I think that that's a really interesting look at the age difference between us, because we've said it a bunch of times, Pokemon is a baby game for babies. And if you don't have that younger generation to like keep dumping money into Pokemon, it goes away. And like, while your generation came back in for Diamond and Pearl, my generation moved away to Yu-Gi-Oh! And Code Lyoko and other Toonami things.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Definitely was like skinned in that like mid 2000s, like all the belts aesthetic as well, which I think
it was a little more edgy,
a little more emo, which I think helped.
The thing that I think we're all kind of collectively saying without saying is Pokemon Red and Blue and Gold and Silver. It was like a culture. It was a thing. It was a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
Ruby and Sapphire were really good games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, it went like everybody had Gold and Silver. Everybody had Red and Blue. That was a kid at that time. People that followed Nintendo and were still playing Nintendo games had Ruby and Sapphire. It was just a game. It was just a very popular game after Ruby and Sapphire. You know, after the pandemic, it kind of, as things do, it made a full 360, because I would say now we've got like a brand new resurgence, and one of the things I wanted to cover off on was the phenomenon that like our generations now like live through this, and our generation's kids are going through a very similar phenomenon. And Pokemon is one of the few franchises, maybe Star Wars, maybe like I don't consider like general Disney stuff, like maybe like your Aladdins or whatever, but like there aren't a lot of franchises that can say this, that like I and people my age grew up with Pokemon. Their kids are now growing up with it, and I have been in a few situations I am ashamed to admit where I will hear a young child being like, "This is Charmander and he does this," and then I'll be like, "He's a fire type, he's not grass."
do not cite the deep magic to me, which I was there when it was created.
Do not recite the deep magic. Like a few times where I'll like whisper to my wife and be like, "He's wrong. It doesn't evolve to giraffe rig.
I mean, anecdotally, the commissioner of this episode, mgrum5754, has a child and has done the like crawl to your starter Pokemon bit with their child. Like, mgrum is my age. He was he's my class in college. Our birthdays were 2 weeks apart. Like, so you're spot on there. Pokemon is definitely like circled back around. I think in the way like Star Wars did from like our boomer parents to our generation. Pokemon is that bridge for this. Yeah.
I had one last question for you guys before we finished up. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for list of Pokemon video games, and I'm remembering all of the like wild side games that I had. And I've talked an awful lot about Pokemon Pinball 2 on this podcast, but I just wanted to ask you guys, like, what non-main series Pokemon video games did you have, and did they have as big of an impact on your life as like Pokemon Pinball 2 did for me, but also the Pokemon Stadium series, Pokemon Snap, Hey You Pikachu? Like, there are a lot of games in there.
The old ones definitely, like when the first couple spin-offs, Pokemon Stadium definitely. Kyle mentioned the TCG game. I had that one.
Mm-hmm.
The Pokemon Snap. I would say after the N64 era, because then you're getting into like Pokemon Coliseum, which like I never really messed with. I never got into like Mystery Dungeon and any of the other like handhelds. Yeah, so I guess like after the initial like Red and Blue era, maybe, or Gold Silver era. Yeah.
I didn't have a Nintendo 64, so I only got to play Snap and Stadium like at my friends who had it, and that was caused by how much we played Pokemon. That was right at the time where like whenever we'd go over, their mom was like, "No, play outside. You can't come in and play video games." So
lame.
I know I didn't get to play
So
a ton. I didn't get to play a ton of Snap or Stadium. I did have Coliseum, and I played a decent amount of that. Didn't super play the DS games, the like non-mainline DS games, until more recently. I've loaded them up on an emulator and have played them. Yeah, I played a lot of the trading card game. I played the trading card game again during the pandemic, and it's a lot of fun. It's real easy to cheese, which is cool.
Oh, that's what I was gonna ask you, Kyle. Is there like Magic has MTG Arena, which is just like you can just like it's a free, you can play Magic without having to buy a bunch of cards. Does Pokemon have anything like that?
Pokemon has a much more robust online thing. I believe it's also completely free, and either when you buy a physical card pack, you can scan in there's a promo card you can scan in and you get a free pack online, or it's just all open, like build your deck, play the game, go nuts. I don't know exactly. Someone's gonna shout like, no, it's all, you have to buy it all there too, but last I checked, it was actually one of the more like economic ways to play online. But I think you have to actually buy the physical cards to get that like deal to work out.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's probably good. I don't need to get really into the Pokemon trading card game again.
No.
I did pull down, this will do great on this audio podcast. Here's my stack of Pokemon N64 games, including the dual color Pokemon Stadium 2 cartridge.
Nice.
Which got a lot of playtime. But did any of you guys have or play Hey You Pikachu? Maybe the worst game ever made for the N64.
I didn't, and I wanted it so bad because I was 10 at the time and didn't know it was the worst thing ever made for the N64. But I really wanted to tell my Pikachu, go watch TV, and he'd do it.
Man, I tell you what, Kyle.
I think that's the problem. He wouldn't.
That was the problem, is that this game was programmed in Japanese, and localization is a hell of a drug. And so when you have...
Oh, is that why it's so bad?
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't patch in English voice recognition.
Yeah,
That's
I don't know
awesome.
the whole ins and outs of it, but I do know that, like, I mean, obviously you're using a microphone on an N64. Like, the voice rec, it was probably running on like Dragon 2000. It was not using anything good for voice recognition, but I do know that a big part of the reason that it is so bad is because it got chopped to bits in localization, and they were like, "Yeah, it's a game of the peripheral. It'll make money," and they shipped it out there anyway.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Did either of you have the like Pikachu Tamagotchi?
Hell yeah, I had the Pikachu Tamagotchi.
So,
Goddamn right I did. It died, but I had it.
I was so jealous that like I had talked my parents into getting me a regular Tamagotchi, and then the Pikachu one came out, and I was like, wait, I want that one. And they're like, no, you have a Tamagotchi. You're not getting another one. I was like, but this one's Pikachu. And they're like, no, you're not getting it. And I was so salty that I'd never got my Pikachu Tamagotchi. But it's okay because the remakes of Gold and Silver included a peripheral Pokewalker that
That's right.
had
Yeah.
a semi Tamagotchi-ish function. And then I let my mom use it because she really wanted a pedometer, and then she dropped it down a storm drain in downtown Cincinnati. So I don't have my Pokewalker anymore either.
We've also done this whole Pokemon episode and not talked about Pokemon Go, which, like, if you want to talk about a brief hit of the drug that was Pokemania,
Yes.
Yeah,
first
man.
8 months of Pokemon Go, baby.
That's such a good point, Matt. That was that if you were aware of Pokemon Go and its influence, that was the closest we've come to Pokemania since 2003. Like,
Yeah.
man, the first weeks of Pokemon Go, like the joke is the closest we've ever come to achieving world peace, and
Yeah.
and man,
What, it was a utopian society.
yeah, it's so true.
My like dumb like humble brag is I was in the Pokemon Go beta because I just happened to be living in San Francisco at the time.
Oh wow,
Which is where Niantic
Wild.
is. So yeah, so I got to play Pokemon Go in the beta test when they just did it in San Francisco. Which was so cool because I walked every day.
sure.
So
San
like,
Francisco's a
I had
great
it-
city to play Pokemon
a-
Go in.
objectively a great city, and no one else was playing it, so I was the gym leader at like 3 churches around my apartment.
That's
at the time.
awesome.
But then, and so I played the shit out of it. But then when they did the initial, they did the full launch.
It wiped that out.
It wiped all the data. So I was just like, "Fuck this! I'm not doing this again." Because like I had my time in the sun, you know. I
Yeah.
had my 2 weeks
Yeah.
of Pokemon Go. But yeah,
That's awesome. That's so
Yeah.
cool. My last bit is I definitely wore out my like official Nintendo Power Pokemon Red and Blue guide. Just read through that like the Bible until it fell apart. And I had the like Scholastic Pokemon Handbook and the updated Scholastic Pokemon Handbook that came out after Mew was released as well. I did go to a mall to get Mew. I went to a mall
was
and
just
waited
gonna
in
ask,
line to get
did you
Mew.
ever get Mew legitimately?
Yep.
I never did.
I sure
I've
did.
never owned a legitimate.
Drug my mom to my brother and I drug my poor mom to the mall on a like cold Saturday morning to wait in line and get a digital creature put into our games. And
Man,
she loves us so much.
she does love you, especially because she dropped your Pokewalker in a storm.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you that experience is significantly different. When Pokemon X and Y came out, this was when I was living in San Francisco. I walked my 27-year-old ass to a GameStop, the GameStop in the Westfield Mall, and so I could get a card for a code.
Yep.
To get the legendary Pokemon from Gen 6.
Yep.
And I put that in my pocket and I said, "What am I doing with my life?"
I did a couple of those for Gen 5 because that was like right around I was getting out of college. I had Pokemon Black. I was like, I can drive to GameStop and get the free code. I did a couple of those and I had a similar like,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is worth it. This is a lot of like,
Yeah. It was, honest to God, it was the second time of my life. The only other time was when I was with you at a Meijer when we were buying magic cards at 3 a.m.
Yeah, we did do that. That also happened. Yeah. Matt, do you have any poke shame you want to share?
Not
See also Pokemon Pinball 2.
Yeah, I mean, not other than the fact that I still religiously play Pokemon Pinball 2. No, I went as Ash for Halloween once.
I went as Ash for Ash for Halloween as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just awesome.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's
It's
objectively
real
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
I had the hat with the symbol on it, but it's definitely child-sized and definitely doesn't fit
Oh, I have an
my
adult-sized one.
my big-ass head anymore. I wanted
I'll mail it to you.
Okay.
I had the Pokemon training or Pokemon Master. I don't remember. I had the board game. The board game got a lot of play.
Love that board game. It's
a good board
so convoluted and dumb,
Sure is.
and I love it.
Yeah. I had Pokemon Monopoly too.
Pokemon Monopoly. That board game is like legitimately like one of the few things that's like completely different play experience from the games, but like also captures that feeling of like I caught these like rare Pokemon and fought these hard gym leaders and won when you pull it off. Like it's a good game.
Kyle, do you think in this episode you could play us off with a selection from the Pokemon Christmas album?
the Christmas album?
Yep.
I don't know if I know of the Christmas album.
You don't know the Christmas album? Oh my man, it's good.
You gonna learn today, boy.
I was gonna play us off with the titular track from To Be a Master,
How
which
about
I think
I'm
is
giving-
great.
What about I'm giving Santa a Pikachu for Christmas? I think this is God. This is so stupid. This is definitely the backswing of Pokemania.
Yeah,
The album has like Gligar and Totodile, so it's
Yeah.
definitely them too.
Yep. This is on the downslide. This is
Maybe this is why Pokemon died.
It might be. They might have just like oversaturated with
Yeah.
garbage.
I'm gonna say we can probably play the full song. I will say right now, I will waive my professional credibility that this will not get content ID. Please.
No,
thank you.
I don't think so. Yeah, that is the voice actor who plays Professor Oak in the anime as Professor Oak singing about a I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas-esque song about Pikachu.
Yeah.
Bad.
It's
You're
rough.
wondering if it's bad. It's bad.
They're not wondering because we're playing it right now. This is playing over us talking about how bad it is. All right, I think that's going to do it for the Pokemania episode. We've been rambling for a while. Don't forget about our Spooktacular Express Patreon drive and the first ever Spooktacular Review-a-thon. Write a review of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or your podcast app of choice, and tag us in a screenshot on your favorite social media at DebateThisCast. We will read the best reviews in a dumb, spooky voice during the October ad breaks, and join our Patreon at any tier to get a free Halloween-themed Debate This tchotchke sent directly to you in real life. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you for listening. I'm Kyle Harper.
I'm Andrew. Wiglet is Waluigi for Diglett. Henderson.
I didn't think of an outro. Damn it.
That's my bit, Matt.
I'm Matt. You can't handle my girth. Cole.
And we're saying thanks for listening, and if you think we're wrong, you can come fight us behind the swing sets, nerds.
As his sleigh pulls out of sight, we'll hear him calling through the night. With a ho ho ho!
And a Merry Christmas!